As of March 23, 2022, we will no longer receive ad revenue for any video on this channel, even though YouTube still sells advertising on it. The reason, as we've been told, is because we are a channel that presents historical content as opposed to original content. We refuse to be blacked out. We need your support. Please buy Reelblack merchandise from the Reelblack store. Make a donation through PayPal or Cash App, or by joining our Patreon so that we can have the resources necessary to keep the channel growing.
The white doll is nice, it's pretty, and the black doll is bad and ugly. That's brainwashing. You know, that comes from that, what was that man's name? That Lynch man.
Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name.
Willie Lynch, that's the Willie Lynch syndrome. It's to brainwash us. Then they'll do it themselves.
Willie made you, James. If you don't know that, you don't know nothing.
Pretty brown skin.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Reelblack podcast. Welcome to our 21 Rules of Blackness conversation. And today we have with us Jason Clue and our dear friend Manny. How's it going? You're muted. But anyway, welcome to another episode, sir. And this is in reaction to last week's episode on colorism, which found us in the chat with a little divide and conquer happening. And I said, well, wait a second, we're trying to build bridges, to quote Chikala. We're trying to build bridges, not make walls here. There is so much more in common in the diaspora than there is not in common. And I feel like we are all a victim of Willie Lynch. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Just a debrief on the last podcast before we jump into today.
Yeah, so I think overall the majority were on board and understanding, but there's clearly still like some work to be done. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
and I think it highlighted that there's still a lot of work to do because with the colorism, you have a lot of people who are of dark complexion, and they've got the problem with the light skinned person speaking on colorism, which ironically is a little bit ironic.
Exactly.
Yeah? If it's they're addressing colorism, but they don't think that someone who's light skinned can speak on black issues or colorism, and it's a bit.
Yeah, it's all a part of the divide and conquer, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I saw. That's what I saw last week. That's what I saw the last time out in the last session. Like I say,
so let's get into Willie Lynch. I know you prepared some cards here. Talk about the Willie Lynch letters.
Yeah, so I think what we spoke about yesterday, like you said, Mike, it does come down to this. I think this is the catalyst, or this is the driving factor behind a lot of the comments and thought process that we saw on the last on the colorisms, the colorism episode that we did. So Willie Lynch letters. I first came across this. I think in 2001, 2002, I was first made aware of it. Prior to that, I was, ignorant to it. And I read it and I was like, wow, and I shared it with as many people as possible when I first read it. Manny, I don't know, when did you first come across this?
So I came across the Willie Lynch. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it was quite a while ago. It was I was working in London at the time, but I'd heard about the letter even before that, basically. And even recently, I've had people try to tell me, obviously not black people, but people try to tell me that the letter's not real. But I don't know.
We're gonna get into that a bit
We're
later.
gonna get into that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was many years ago, basically, that I first come across the letter. So yeah.
Yeah. And basically it's the how to make a slave. How and he talks about, well, I guess the easiest way to break it down would be to go to the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, who talks about it quite frequently. A lot of people became aware of the Willie Lynch letters after he spoke at the 1993 Million Man March. But here's an excerpt from a speech that's on YouTube. So you can check it out. And, you know, for further reference, we're not going to read the whole letter or book here. We just want to talk about the syndrome and the effects that it has. So we'll leave the breakdown to Minister Farrakhan. So let me just take you guys away. And
how Willie did this. He said, right in Virginia, up the road, he said, I got a foolproof idea that if you do this, the Negroes will never be able to unite for 300 to 1,000 years. Listen. Lay it out, minister, lay it out. And in a few years, Willie Lynch will have delivered that speech 300 years ago. And here's the way it went. He said, I take my slaves and I look at their differences and I multiply them. I make their differences bigger. Start with age and turn the young against the old and the old against the young. Still going on. Then he said, then you deal with color. When all the slaves came, they were all jet black. But he said, you put your sperm in one of the black women, she produced a brownish baby. Then you add a little more of us and you put a lighter color until you get one that can pass. And then you put them all against each other. Then you take hair, coarse hair, fine hair, and you divide them that way. Then you take the size of the plantation that one slave is on and you make them fight because my boss got a bigger plantation than your boss. Then you take north against south, east against west. Then you deal with status on the plantation, a field nigger and a house nigger and a foreman, a driver man, and you make them all hate each other. And then he said, you got to reverse the natural tendency of the black woman to depend on the black man. See, as African people, what you read in the New Testament, God is the head of man, man the head of woman, woman the head of the child. That's the natural order. Willie Lynch said, let's reverse it. Turn the woman away from depending on the man and make her depend on us. She must find no black man to trust, trust only us. You gotta study that woman. And if you can get her like a horse when you're breaking it to eat out of your hand, then she'll make her children and break them for us.
deep stuff.
Real deep.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, yeah, really impactful. I'll put it that way. really impactful. And he summarizes it. He breaks it down beautifully, beautifully. But those who are watching, if you still want to do your homework, even after what you've heard the minister say, go research it, go find it. You can find it online, you can Google it, and you can read the full speech for yourself.
Right.
But,
and shout out to Go Skills, who posted that video on YouTube. Try to give credit wherever we can.
But his breakdown's beautiful breakdown. Right, so moving on to the next slide. Who was Willie Lynch? So the minister explained who he was. Willie Lynch was a slave master of a plantation in the British West Indies from the 1700s. And he's credited for the speech, The Making of a Slave, which he delivered to an audience of slave owners from Virginia in 1712. Right, so as the minister said, he was brought over because in the British West Indies, where he had his plantation, he was dealing with rebellious slaves. I think they say Jamaica. And if you know the history of Jamaica, they had the most rebellious slaves, apparently. So in the West Indies, Jamaica had the harshest conditions. It was a lot of like sugar plantations, and the life expectancy of slaves in Jamaica were around like, it was like 35 years old or whatever. Your back would give out and you just die, right? So it was more like a death sentence when you got sent there. So when they received slaves in Jamaica, because the conditions were so harsh, they were very rebellious and wanted to just, escape, break free, tried to kill their master or whatever. So he implemented, he's credited to implement measures to try and prevent that, or at least reduce it.
Right.
And it worked very well. And then the US was like, what are they doing over there in the West Indies, which we can borrow. And they brought him over. He gave the speech, and the rest is history. They was eating out of his hands by the time he finished his speech, apparently. Yeah. And,
I guess his premise was to beat the slaves within an inch of their life, but not to kill them because they were valuable property.
Yeah, so there's a part in there where it says that. Yeah, so you instill fear in them. Yeah, so you get the strongest, you take the strongest slave from the plantation, and then you beat him almost to death, but you let him live, and then he'll then go back for you and tell everybody else, that it's not a good idea to do what I did, because look what happened to me. Well,
they do it in front of everyone else to terrorize them.
Absolutely,
terrorize the public into saying, "Oh, well, don't be the bad nigger,"
Yeah, so. and that was a measure which they did, and like what the minister said as well, is where they would be using these differences and turn it against you. So, with that said, moving on to popular culture. So these two films here, Great Debaters and Animal, spring out. There may be a few more, but these two in particular spring out to me because they were the first films that I personally noticed where it was mentioning the Willie Lynch letters, the Willie Lynch syndrome within there. There's been a few films since then that have mentioned it, but these are the earliest ones I can think of. If anyone can think of something earlier, then please pop it in the comments and let us know. Yeah. But I first watched Animal in 2005 with Ving Rhames, and the whole film was themed around this Willie Lynch, the Willie Lynch syndrome, wasn't it? I think it was the underlying theme of the film, because he wanted to break this cycle. So he discovered that I think it was who speaks to him. It's Jim Brown.
Yeah,
Jim Brown in prison. So it's again, Mike.
We got the clip. Do you want to?
Oh, there you go. Hit the clip.
So,
yeah. Again, what's your thoughts on that one, Manny? Yeah.
Deja vu all over again.
What's your thoughts, Manny? On Animal?
Yeah, it's actually, this is what's happening, isn't it? It's happening today.
Do you remember Animal then, the movie?
Of course, yeah, with Ving Rhames. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the first time for you when you heard the discussing the speech?
No, see, this is what I'm saying. I can't remember the very first time, because I know my sister sent me this as well. a long time ago. So I got on for my sister sent it to me before I saw it here, or I saw it here first. Remember, I'll tell you when it was, Jason. Remember when we used to live at, where did we? I think we used to live at the same place at the time here, and she just turned to the Rasta thing, innit? And she sent me the document, like the piece of paper with the drawings and the slaves. Because at the same time, I learned about, and I don't know how authentic it is, but for Christmas when they used to hang black people from trees.
For Christmas?
For Christmas, yeah. So that's where these whole, yeah, so there's that belief as well, that the hanging from trees is where these hanging the baubles on the tree comes from. I don't know. But about the same time I saw that was the same time I heard about Willie Lynch, so I can't exactly put a finger on it, but yeah.
But in movies though, do you remember hearing it before?
Nah,
before Animal?
I couldn't think of where it was before Animal. But being honest again, I don't even remember that scene in Animal. To be fair, I don't even remember it.
Now the whole movie was about that, because at the end of Animal, he's trying to give his son the papers.
Yeah.
His son's played by Terrence Howard. That was a little bit. I think that was a little bit of a stretch, because Terrence Howard and Ving Rhames are around the same age, aren't they? And you had Terrence Howard playing his son,
like Cuba Gooding Jr. and Lawrence Fishburne. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Wasn't Cuba Gooding Jr. older than Lawrence Fishburne as well?
But yeah,
well, that's crazy. Well, it brings up a good point. I mean, you're talking about where you first heard of this. I mean, this is a transcontinental idea, and again, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because of the sort of backlash we got from a few people that somehow they like coming from a certain place, you're not black enough, you're not this enough or that.
Terrible.
But it's part of the brainwashing, Terrible. I mean, I understand on a certain level we're talking about economic power and different things like that, but it's still I feel like even when you talk about the term minority, it's a misnomer when you're really looking at things, because if not for this Willie Lynch syndrome, we could have banded together a long time ago and proven that the minority of people are of not European, not of the so-called dominant culture that exists in America, but those of the diaspora, all over the planet. If so the minority is actually the majority. It's sort of like what the minister was saying. Everything is kind of reversed in our minds as far as what should be considered dominant genes and all other stuff. But so I mean, talk to me about your experiences in the UK with this type of syndrome.
We've got I'd say we definitely got colorism in the UK. I always like to believe that it's not as bad now, but really and truly, I don't know, because I'm sure that there's young people that are experiencing colorism now at their age. But when I was younger, and even people that are maybe only 10 years younger than me, they still separate themselves from other people within the black community. So for argument's sake, you got some it's crazy because now you got some darker skinned girls, for example, who would swear that a light skinned girl who is of mixed heritage, black and white, isn't black. You know what I mean? And I know in America, at least, you don't have that, I don't think. Do you know what I mean? Because
we definitely do.
Oh, you do?
So not nowhere near to the same.
Yeah,
nowhere near to the same. Okay.
Yeah, it's bad over here. Yeah. I think it's really bad over here because you can't tell them in it, and this is the same Willie Lynch thing. Like, and you can't convince them that this is that the game's still working. If you take that view, then it's still working. Do you know what I mean? They'll stand on that, and they'll basically say that you won't be able to understand their experience. And to be fair, you probably, not even probably, you definitely won't be able to fully understand their experience if you're a dark-skinned female and you've got a light-skinned female we also know that with lighter skinned females, especially as well, ones that are probably of mixed parentage, they get that thing where not where they pass and that, but it's more acceptable, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? But that's also part of this playing one off against the next. So, you know, it's like it happens.
I've also heard darker skinned females refer to females who are just a few shades lighter than them, but they might have the hair might be looser, or they might have light eyes, and refer to them as not being black. Because it's almost like, oh, I bet they're probably mixed with something, they're not black. And you're thinking, wow, what's the threshold, you know, for your blackness? And again, that goes back to the Willie Lynch, where it's find some little tiny difference and separate it. Now, if you remember, there was a movie called Hotel Rwanda. Yeah, I might speak about this in more detail in another podcast. We might talk about Africa depiction in movies. That's one we'll touch on. But in Hotel Rwanda, it spoke about it was about the two tribes who fought and wiped each other out. Oh man, I don't want to say just in case I get it wrong. Is the Tutsis and the Hutu? Maybe someone will help me out in the comments. Yeah, right. Yeah, and but what they don't tell you, the reason why they were fighting and trying to kill each other, is because the Germans were there to start with. They occupied that part of Africa, yeah, and what they did, they one of the tribes, so what the Germans thought, had a longer nose. And they were like, oh, you resemble the Germans more, a European, because you've got a long, pointy nose, right? So they put them in positions of power. And then when they left, I think historically it was the other ones who had a button nose, a smaller nose. They were, I think, ones who were in power before the Germans arrived. So when the Germans then left, they then started fighting, right? And we're fighting, even though like hundreds and hundreds of years prior to the Germans being there, everyone knew their places and it wasn't an issue. Yeah. They had a natural order of doing things. And then that was flipped upside down. Germans left, they're fighting each other, some mass genocide. And everyone looks back like, oh, look at them. Look, they're just killing each other. Yeah. But they're not actually explaining the reasons why. Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, it's almost like it's like you are walking through the roughest part of Philadelphia, Mike, and then you see a group of guys who are on hard times, and you walk over to them and you take out $1,000 rolled up in just rolled up in a plastic band tied around it, and you just say, there you go, and you give one of them the $1,000. Yeah. And you say, enjoy yourself, right? Yeah.
Well, that's the colorism. I mean, basically, colorism is about giving your offspring preferential treatment. You know,
but if you give one of them the $1,000, what do you think the reaction of the others are going to be? Do you think they're going to start trying to fight each other and argue?
Facts.
Well, yeah,
they're going to fight and argue.
You know, if the person does not share. And if they share, they might not share it evenly. So there might be some arguments, and then people would see them arguing, and then think, look at them, they can't control. They're just arguing over nothing, not knowing that you've manipulated the situation for them to fight and argue. Right. Well, I mean, basically, in the Willie Lynch thing, it's to breed out the bad, aggressive, rebellious out of your genetics, and to make the woman feel more dominant. And
did it work though? Did it?
Well, it definitely works in the United States because we have the welfare system, which actually for a long time was designed to punish families that had males in the household.
Yeah, they did a thing, didn't they, where women were encouraged to, it made the women end up saying that the men didn't live with them in order for them to get state handouts. Because if the men lived with them, then they wouldn't get the state handouts. And from the Willie Lynch point of view, they used to whip the male lead in the family, especially the rebellious Negro, so that when anything needed to be done within the household, the woman became the negotiator, and the man would have to fall back basically. So he lost his position, didn't he? He wasn't able to be the dominant or the leading individual in the relationship. The woman would barter for more money, for more food, and then the male was emasculated. And that's what they're trying to do now. When I say it didn't work, I mean that they've destroyed us in one respect here, but there's not many very passive. They're still bulls, basically. They're still men that are very rebellious. The problem is they've got no direction.
Well, there's also the prison industrial complex here has taken
exactly. That's where they end up.
Well, you say they're rebellious, yeah, but it's like who they're rebelling against, who they actually fighting against. Because when you actually look at it and you talk about these people who are rebellious, yeah, all the ones who you might think are, the ones that would otherwise be soldiers have been taken into the prison industrial complex, basically. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
Well, let's take a look. We're talking about the depiction of Willie Lynch in movies, for those who are just tuning in. So let's take a look at the Great Debaters. Is that okay, Jason?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, all right, got to cue it up.
Tell us about your father.
Why don't you tell us something about your father?
We're trying to get to know each other, Mr. Lowe.
I was trying to get to know you, Mr. Tolson.
Well, I'm not the one on the debate team.
Are we not engaged in a debate right now?
All right. I'll take the affirmative. Take the meanest, most restless nigger. Strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, female niggers, and nigger infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a horse facing in opposite direction, set him on fire, and beat both horses until they tear him apart in front of the male, female, and nigger infants. Bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger males within an inch of their life. Do not kill them, but put the fear of God in them, for they can be useful for future breeding. Anybody know who Willie Lynch was? Anybody? Raise your hand. No one? He was a vicious slave owner in the West Indies. The slave masters in the colony of Virginia were having trouble controlling their slaves, so they sent for Mr. Lynch to teach them his methods. The word lynching came from his last name. His methods were very simple, but they were diabolical. Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master. Keep the body, take the mind. I and every other professor on this campus are here to help you to find, take back, and keep your righteous mind. Because obviously you have lost it. That's all you need to know about me, Mr. Lowe.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
It is powerful stuff, and with that scene there, the point that he's trying to get across to him is that you're not in your right mind, and a lot of us aren't in our right mind, because of as a direct result of that. And in the Willie Lynch letters, I don't think it covered that in any of the scenes. Well, I think it touched on in one of the other ones where it said that it will last for 300 years. But what it says in the letter, it says your parents will teach it for you. You only have to once it's delivered correctly by the slave master, you won't have to teach it again. Yeah, because
and they are doing that as well.
Mothers will teach it. Yeah, absolutely. The mothers will teach it. So when you talk about colorism, sometimes the mothers are passing this down to their children, teaching them that. All the other things which we're going to look at in a little while in terms of the possible effects of the Willie Lynch syndrome. So I don't want to jump ahead. And we'll look at that in a moment. But it's passed down.
It's not just passed. It's not only passed down in the teaching, the direct teaching, because they might say, marry a man with money, maybe a white man. They might say they they've got the colorism thing, so they can get the guy with the good hair and everything else. But on the side of that, I was looking at this thing again, this experiment that popped up the other day, right? And I've seen it many years ago, and it shows you like you've got these fleas, right, and they jump really high, yeah, and they catch these fleas, and they put them in the petri dish, and they keep it there they keep the fleas there for 3 days, right? And when they take the lid off, they won't jump out, yeah. But then the interesting thing is the offspring that those fleas have never jump out of that lid either. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same way when you like chain an elephant or a bear, you put a chain around his neck and it's there. And before that, he would always have tried to get away. But after so many years, you don't have to chain it to anything. He's got going anywhere.
Well, they say the thing, it's the stake, isn't it? So like it's a little stake they put in the ground when the elephant's a baby.
And they don't even need this. They don't even need
this. When the elephant's a baby, it can't put it away. And when the elephant grows big, it's still the same little pole they're putting in. Even though the elephant could just move his neck slightly and come away, but he won't even bother.
They don't. The point I'm making is they don't need to put the stake in the end. It's the same as like with us. It's again, we talk about this epigenetic trauma, isn't it? It's within us. At the end of the day, it's actually not all of us. Actually, maybe all of us, but some of us more than others. It's in us, so we carry it with us. Which is why some women, still, no disrespect to any women out there that are wearing those the wigs, etc., the European wigs.
Wow, you're really good. You're gonna get the comments firing up with that comment.
I ain't trying to offend anybody, but that is part of what's going on. I tell you what, you should get a clip. I don't think you can find this clip here, but this is a beautiful clip here. If you can find this, Mike, I'm gonna look for it for you.
Okay.
There's 2 black women, right, and they're on UK morning TV, yeah. And this one black woman who's on the morning television program, she's trying to talk. It's about colorism because this African woman is bleaching her skin, yeah. And then this woman is trying to tell her you shouldn't bleach your skin, right? And then she says, the woman who's bleaching her skin says, well, you're not the person to tell me not to bleach my skin because look at that wig that you're wearing. You should take that wig off, yeah. And she's like, no, and she's trying to talk, but she won't let her talk. And what she ends up doing is, the woman who's bleaching her skin pulls her wig off and says, no, let's really talk about it. She got a little afro out. You take yours off now. But the other woman point blank refused and wouldn't take hers off. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? So the woman who was bleaching her skin was willing to take up her wig and show her hair and be quite real, I don't mind all that. So, you know, when you say about women coming for me, I hope no one does come for me because here's the thing. If you're a woman, right, and you wear a wig, I don't care. But what I would say is, you should be able to wear your own hair with pride. You shouldn't feel as though you've got to hide your own hair away. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you want to wear a wig Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's fine. But it becomes a problem if you're chilling with your man, yeah, and your man wants to see you with that wig off and you can't take that wig off. Basically. Do you get me? That's the Willie Lynch working right there that's been bred into you. And that is why we have issues with colorism, because part of it's going to be the issue. It's long. I don't want to go into that because then people will try and come for me. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but
let's go to another expert.
Got to check themselves
for a second. I can let the doll test speak for us.
Go for it.
All right, let's check this out. 3738. Let me go.
Thank you.
I was right there.
Which doll is the black doll? And which one is the white doll?
That one.
Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because she's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like me?
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Yeah. So it runs deep, and it's inherited, and it goes to our children. So that's what Paul Mooney was talking about. And
yeah, it goes to our children, but it only goes to our children with our assistance. I have to point that out.
Oh, I as a filmmaker, I disagree. I think it's everywhere. It's in the media, and the media needs to change.
But it's still with our assistance. Lots of things are everywhere in the media, but it's still with our assistance. What I mean by that is that it's out there in the media, right? But if you're counteracting that at home with positive reinforcement of the opposite, then it's not going to have the same effect.
Mm-hmm.
I did the doll test with my children when they were young, just to see.
Okay.
Just to see if my methods were working. And they passed the doll test. Yeah, they didn't fail. Whereas someone or a couple of people I knew did the same test and their kids produced the same result as that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just because, they didn't intervene.
Right. Yeah, I think it's probably 1 out of 7 quote unquote pass a doll test at that age. So
1 out of 7.
That was one of the
that's the statistic.
Statistics,
yeah. So like I say, it's with our assistance. If you're putting positive reinforcement into your child, then they shouldn't be failing that doll test. Yeah. And you got to think as well, like how many that you of who aren't continuing this same narrative, even if it's a little, to their children.
Well, I mean, it's difficult.
Is it the majority or the minority?
I'll tell you one thing I will say on that, in terms of continuing that narrative, because I've seen some good parents, pass on some good traits to their kid, where if you even did that doll test, their children would look at the black doll and say, that's the beautiful doll. But the parent, even though they're doing the job with the kid, the parent is still themselves of the old world. The parent,
yes, but at least they're trying to break the cycle.
Yeah,
at least they're trying to break the cycle, because sometimes 100%. It's like this, isn't it? It's like you might be sick, but
you know what? Sorry, definitely. But at the same
you're not
time,
going to part. But you can still produce and make healthy children.
No, you're right. But listen to this. But when you, in terms of what you're saying, like, because ultimately it's calling it what you're saying is like, but there's another level of accountability to that in it, because whilst the parent is doing a fantastic job, if that parent, for argument's sake, is doing a great job, but the child sees them doing what they're telling the child or teaching the child they should never do, there is an aspect where the child's going to think, well, it's all very well you telling me that I'm this and I'm that and I'm beautiful and all the rest of it, but why aren't you living by those same rules you're laying down for me? Do you know what I mean? You're telling me to wear my hair naturally, but why ain't you wearing your hair naturally? You're telling me.
Indirectly they're doing the same thing, aren't they? Then it's gonna
This might be an interesting time to open up to post some comments in the chat, or have people in the chat comment. Are your kids passing the doll test? I mean, and is this something that, how deep does this run, I guess, is the question,
Absolutely.
I never thought about the doll test as a kid. I never thought about the doll test, but I know I was inundated by European standard of beauty on television, and it's affected me. I had to unthink that, for a long time. I had to unthink that, and it took me years to unthink that. So,
like you've been to Colombia, Mike, haven't you? Right?
Yeah.
I don't suppose you went into a toy store when you were there.
I have seen toys. Everything's European.
Did you go? Did you? Okay. Try find a black doll in Colombia. Try to find a non-blonde hair, blue-eyed doll in Colombia. You will struggle.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not believe it. I'm thinking, I live in England, right? And you go into the toy shop, right? And like probably 1 in 3 dolls are black. Would you say, Manny? or 1 in 4
Possibly.
maybe.
Well, I don't. You know what? I haven't looked at the dolls, but I know about black dolls here. I know that much.
Yeah,
But
it's
you
like
know,
they're
Dan is-
kind of popular. Like white kids
Yeah.
buy black dolls, don't they, these days? Right?
Mhm.
Probably 1 in 4 of the dolls you'll see will be black. Right? Went to Colombia in the toy shop. Honestly, there wasn't one. There wasn't even one. Right? There wasn't one that didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. Right? So
But didn't
sometimes
you
we
tell
think
me
it's
in Colombia? Yeah, didn't you tell me they kind of revere people with blonde hair and blue eyes? You said that when a lady came to, was that Colombia or was that somewhere else when she came to the UK?
It's
and
just
she saw
South
the
America.
blonde with,
It's just South
with
America
blonde
in
hair and
general.
blue eyes.
I'll
Yeah.
tell you the story. Right?
Okay, tell the story.
So
Interesting.
So someone came over from South America. They moved to England, right? Well, can't remember the country actually. But in fact, 2 people from 2 separate countries had the same they were having the conversation, and they both said the same thing. That they couldn't believe the same thing that they saw, right? So they were having a conversation about when they came to England, and they saw a homeless guy in the street, right? And he was sat there in the street, and he had they were like, oh. He was there. He had this flowing blonde hair and blue eyes. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen anything like it. I was like, "What on earth is he?" I was like in shock. You know, like when I saw him just like on the street with these. He had the most beautiful blue eyes. I couldn't believe it. And like she kept talking about how she couldn't believe her eyes to see a white man on the street, homeless, begging. She'd never seen anything like that before. It was just like blew her mind.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so that's where Manny's coming from with the fact that when you go into the shop, that's why the dolls look the way they do. They, so we think it's bad here.
In real life. I can't
believe that woman thought, that was a waste of blonde hair and blue eyes. That no man.
That's what I was taking it as. Like
Exactly,
somehow her perception is that blonde hair and blue eyes is wealth.
Yeah. She's It's like what. Was it Chris Rock? Was it? No, Paul Mooney. He said that every time he sees a white homeless person, he cries. He says, "Remember that? Remember that line?"
It's a Chris Rock joke. He says his mother doesn't give the homeless people joke.
No, the Paul Mooney one. He said every time he sees a homeless man, he cries. He cries. Oh, boo, boo, boo. He said, "I just think of what a waste of white skin."
Ouch. All right. Well, maybe we'll talk to Paul now. Have you seen this clip? Hang on. Like the boys said, I mean, if that was 100 years ago, we're going to be dealing with race, and that's going to be the issue. And seemingly, like you say, overtly, it seems that things have changed.
Yeah, not really. No, I'm writing a script now. Remember Rip Van Winkle? Remember? My Rip Van Winkle's black. He falls asleep. There's a man being lynched. He sleeps for 100 years. He wakes up, a man's being lynched. Maybe when you see my film, you'll understand it more. You'll be better educated about it. Ain't nothing changed but the weather. You know, I told you tonight about the doll test. The girl had the doll test. Our kids say the same thing. That means that they're being brainwashed. The white doll is nice, it's pretty, and the black doll is bad and ugly. That's brainwashing. So, you know, that comes from that, what was that man's name? That Lynch man. That Willie Lynch. That's the Willie Lynch syndrome. To brainwash us. Then they'll do it themselves. They must only love and trust us, not each other. Notice the difference in their skin color, their ages, and terrify their females. Our black women do things that came from slavery. They don't even know why they do it. Our black women slept with the white man. When you sleep with someone, they're very vulnerable. And the black woman found out how much he hates us. That's why she has a fear for the young black male. Women in a family will damn near make a black man a pimp. They protect us, they give it to us. They try to hold us as long as they can because they know once we get out there, because when we reach puberty, that sexual thing, that white man, they know how much that white man hates us. And we're going to jail or we're going to be murdered. And the black woman knows it. And she takes the female and she pushes her out there first. Working jobs, everything. But not us. She holds us back psychologically. It comes from slavery.
Great Paul Mooney.
And like Paul Mooney, R.I.P. Both.
Yeah, Paul Mooney, very wise man. Very wise man. Spot on. 100%. Can't disagree.
So he's talking about the today's effects on the Willie Lynch letters. Let's go through the list.
Yeah, so possible effects of the Willie Lynch letters. So I think a lot of things can fall under one of these categories. If there's anything you think should be added to the categories, then just pop it in the chat. Let us know. But this is what we put together. So we've got lack of value on Black life is an effect of that. So from seeing how easily Black people are killed, it then gives you a warped perspective of Black life. You think it's not worth as much as other people's lives. That's why it's a lot easier.
And we see that in the media here in the States. We see that in the media all the time, where the reporting of missing children. If it's a Black child who's missing, it generally doesn't make the news the same way it does when it's a white kid who's missing. So,
well, we saw that with remember the Charlie Hebdo shooting in France when there were 12 people killed. Yeah, and I think the same week. Yeah, and then Facebook did the thing with the flags, and everyone was wearing like French flags and stuff like that. Remember?
Are we seeing it right now though? We're seeing it right now, with the war that's going on in the world.
We'll get to that, but like with the Charlie Hebdo, you had 12 people were killed a week later by terrorists. A week later, 2 weeks later, you had that mass killing in Nigeria with was it Boko Haram, whatever, where they killed like the schoolgirls? I can't remember the number, but it's like, was it 1,000 schoolgirls or something crazy like that? Some crazy number. And Facebook didn't do the same thing with the Nigerian flags to people to put over their faces,
right?
And that's a example, isn't it, of Black lives not mattering as much.
And Black Lives Matter. Clearly, we see that with the police shootings that end up on the news and on social media. It reinforces the same type of terror. With the overseer. As Karis One says, overseer, officer, overseer. So the police. We live sort of in a police state here in the States, where there's constant fear and threat towards Black men by the police. So
it's
here too.
Yeah, not to the same degree. Like
it's not to the same degree, but it is a police state. It is a police state. It's just that our police don't carry guns. That's all.
Yeah, they're just not allowed to murder you, They don't have a license to kill like they do in the US.
Exactly.
Well,
they've got a license, but they do have a license to put you in prison for absolutely nothing.
Yeah, they've got that license. Yeah, they've got that license. Yeah, they've got that. They've got a license to stop you and cause you stress. Yeah, and try and set you up, but they don't have the same license. The kill on the spot license. Yeah, they don't quite have that.
We discussed the colorism in depth. What distrust within the community? What?
So distrust within the community.
Yes.
I'll just explain, then you can then build on that, Manny. Yeah, it's the the Black salesman knocks on your door, right, to sell you, I don't know, double glazing windows or whatever, air conditioning unit, whatever he's selling, right? And you won't trust him. You'll think he's up to something. Yeah, you'll think he's a con. Yeah, whereas the white salesman turns up on your door, right? Whatever he's selling, you'll entertain it and hear what he's got to say. That's what I mean with the distrust. But Manny, you're going to give an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to give an example.
I was going to. I can give an
Mike.
example. There's one. There's a video that's on the channel where it's a meeting with a bunch of it's right in 1968-69 period, and one of the people, it says, like, look, it's we try to have meetings to empower ourselves, but Black people won't show up unless there's a white person in charge. Like if a white person were to call a civil rights meeting, then everybody would be showing up. But if a black person tried to do the same thing, this gentleman's claiming, no one would come. You know,
Facts.
so it's definitely Willie Lynch on that level, in terms of building trust, where the safety and security only comes from the man. You know, he provides the food, the clothing, and shelter for the most part, and establishes the standard of beauty. So therefore, we're brainwashed into thinking that white is right and black is bad. So I mean, this is the 60s, and I think I would argue that it continues to
it still continues. Absolutely. I had someone, I'm going to mention their name in case they actually watch, all right? But I had someone saying to me, they do like painting and decorating, yeah? And they were saying to me that when they do work for black people, yeah, the black people never pay them, right? But when they do it for white people, the white people pay them, right? So I said to him, really? Yeah, so I challenged him on that. And then I said, give me some examples then. And he couldn't give me an example of where the black person didn't pay him. He was struggling.
So it's just his perception.
That was his perception. So distrust in the black and within the community again. So take two. So yeah, distrust. We don't trust each other. And that was from the Willie Lynch letters. You know, they want us to trust them, but not trust each other. This is why you have a lot of black businesses which don't do as well as they should, because they're not getting the support from their own community, because they'd rather go somewhere else and spend the money than spend it with each other. You probably all heard someone say, "I'm not giving him my money." Yeah, and you say, "Why is that?" And they can't even give you a real valid response.
They'll say they say he or she's too expensive.
Oh, that's what they say.
Do you remember? Do you know the difference is when we went to Tanzania? Do you remember? Right, when we went to Tanzania, what they said to us is a different mentality. They said if you as a black person open a shop here in Tanzania and you are $20 or $30 cheaper than the white person next door, they will go to you because you're black.
You mean more expensive? You mean if you
was a black person are $20 or $30 more expensive than a white person next door, the black people will still go to you because you're black.
Yeah, because they've got the same again, distrust.
No, they don't. It's the opposite. In Tanzania, they trust. They're trying to build you.
Yeah, I said they don't have the distrust. I said they don't have the distrust. Yeah, they don't have the distrust. Yeah,
and then the
Eurocentric beauty standards, right?
Yeah, what we're inundated with on television in the States is a European standard of beauty. So
all right, I've got a twist on that. Yeah?
Test.
I'll tell you, we got a twist on that Eurocentric beauty standard, because for all the women, yeah, that had ironing boards for asses for the longest time, yeah, every woman, yeah, that had a curvy bumper used to hide that under a jumper or whatever. Yeah, they used to hide it.
Yeah,
they were scared to show it. And then Kim Kardashian injected herself with cow fat or whatever she did, and every woman, black, whatever, started to show themselves. So it took a Eurocentric body to emulate the body of a black woman before black women felt comfortable enough to get their booties out.
Well, you could argue J-Lo made it a bit more fashionable
initially, but she didn't really have the effect that Kim Kardashian
you're right. Yeah, Kim had more of an effect.
Yeah, J-Lo definitely made it fashionable, but she didn't have the effect that Kim Kardashian really killed it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because Kim made white girls want to have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and to be fair, it's still to the point where, you know what? Not only she made white girls want to have it, but here's what's happening now: even black women who've already got an ass are injecting rubbish into it, so it's even bigger. So it's like it's getting to the point now. It's like it's unnatural. Do you know what I mean? You're looking at
almost like that steroid look now.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's simple or whatever it is. You've got a leg that's slim like that, and at the top of the slim leg, you've got a derriere that's like that. It just doesn't look right.
You know no, it's true. It's true. I've seen pictures because because you
and the lips as well. The lips.
Yeah,
injecting,
you wouldn't have those dimensions with your legs. You wouldn't have those dimensions with your legs.
Because your legs would be used to carrying all that weight, so they'd be thick as well. But they'd
be thicker. Yeah,
they'd be thicker.
True.
But they've also with the lips in as well. So automatically, the beauty standards change to what has always been traditionally beautiful to a black ethnic woman, but it's taken Europeans to actually make it popular.
Yeah, they take from us and then they resell it back to us. It's the double standard, the hypocrisy.
Definitely do that.
So what's the last slide, Jason? I think this is the last slide coming up. Oh no, we have two more. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the fact or fiction part. So
I think the man said it. You can go. Say what you're gonna say. I got a view on this anyway.
Well, you go first then.
The man said it doesn't matter because it works, doesn't it? So whether it's fact or it's fiction, it's working, isn't it? And it's been working.
Right.
I can't disagree with that.
You get me? It's been working. So if it was a lie and somebody wrote a story, it's a fantastic story because that story it's got us in a chokehold in it. So
right.
It's without this man having to exist, if this is how genius this man is and this way of living is, then it doesn't matter if it's real or not because it's actually happening in real life regardless. You know, we're divided for nonsense.
It's like, what's it called, isn't it? It's like telling your children to not go in the cupboard because there's a boogeyman in there. And then the children never go in the cupboard. Right? Now, does it matter that there's a boogeyman or not in the cupboard?
It's a bit effed, but I get you.
Does it matter? No, it didn't because the effect is they never went in there.
But they don't go in there, so your shredded wheat or your frosties or whatever, they're safe, aren't they? But
it's mind control.
That's the point, isn't it?
It's mind control. So but I mean, for the record, the Willie Lynch letters have been debunked because of certain language that was used in them that was not popular at the time of 1712. But as Jason and Manny are saying, it's something that's worth exploring and reading because it, regardless of the source, it does explain a lot of what's going on mentally with Black people and our inferiority complex within this context of white supremacy.
But then I'll say this, playing devil's advocate here, because some people might want to still believe in the authenticity of the letters, and I'll say this: maybe, just maybe, someone rewrote them in the 70s from original letters from the 1700s.
True.
That's a possibility.
I'll say this then. I'm gonna second you on that, Jason. Yeah, if we're gonna turn around and try and say that the Willie Lynch letters are a load of nonsense because someone wrote them in the what year?
1970s.
Can we just talk about the King James Bible then?
We open up a can of worms now.
And I don't want to talk about it, but the point I'm saying is that thing there has been rewritten in it. So we can't be talking about rewriting as some kind of way of completely
dismissing something.
Yeah, because the thing of the matter is as well, I'm quite sure that when these slave masters had the offspring with the slaves, they were putting their offspring in the house because it was their offspring. Now, whether that was an intentional thing that they ended up doing, it still caused a divide because you knew if you was like a slave, and you had children with a woman, right, and your children are getting whipped and beaten every single day, then that woman gets raped by the slave master, but her child goes in the house. That's having a psychological effect, and the slave master is not going to be oblivious to the effect that it's having. So, if it wasn't intentional, sometimes it was just a great mistake, but they would have picked up on it because nobody's stupid. So, I'm not going to say that people have suggested to me that it's a lie, but I don't know. I'm not convinced it's a lie. I don't know.
I'm not 100% convinced.
I don't know if it's true, but I definitely wouldn't just turn around and say, "Oh, it's just a load of rubbish." No way, no way.
Well, I was driving with Baba Dick Gregory, and his argument was that it was fake, that it was something that was planted by the CIA.
Okay,
so that's directly from Dick Gregory. If anybody who's interested,
did you get his rationale for why they did? And here's the thing, though, if they planted that, it still had the damn effect that it was meant to have, regardless.
Well, the conversation we had at the time was that the Willie Lynch letter was fake, that was CIA, but also to put in perspective where we are in our oppression. He said where Black Americans are, or Black people in the diaspora are, is still only 400 years. He said it took thousands of years for Jewish people to unite themselves. And that we need to be more patient in the process. All right, and the last card is?
The last card is, can we reverse it? Yeah, can we reverse it? That's a question to you guys on the panel. At home.
I think, yeah. I mean, that's a good question for the chat. Can we reverse it? I feel that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it's planned, and if we want to reverse it, it's really needs to be dismantled. I love what you said earlier about giving your own children the doll test and making sure that they passed it. I think that's an important step. Knowing what we put into our minds as well as what we put into our bodies is important. That's why we do these type of podcasts, to make more people aware of the systems and things that are operating within our subconscious. I think it can be reversed, but but you can't take away the genetic trauma and the fact that we come up through families for the most part. We don't exist as independent beings, and we have to really explore and examine our upbringings if we want to really unthink these attitudes, belief systems.
So I agree. The only thing is, I would say, I absolutely agree exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know if we need to reverse it as opposed to go through it. Basically, I think we need to go through it. And then someone was saying to me the other day, a person who's actually a traumatologist, he was saying that with trauma, that people go through trauma, and a lot of the time, all they do is they're given mechanisms for coping with the trauma. So the trauma is never really gone. Yeah. But with this traumatology, what it helps you do is it allows you to go through the trauma, accept it, and then it's what happens after. And he gave an example. He said, if you're with your partner, yeah, and your partner, you give her the keys to your car, and she crashes your car, but she's okay, and she comes back to you, what's probably the hardest thing for her to do? And it transpired, the hardest thing for her to do is to probably say, oh, I've crashed your car, your brand new Porsche, Ferrari, whatever it is. It's going to be a struggle for her to say it. But if you're going to respond to her and say, oh, babe, it's okay, got insurance, whatever, she's going to be all right. So it's what happens after. So for me, I think we've got to get through it. We've got to accept what's happened, and we've also got to have empathy for each other, and people can have empathy for us, but understand that they don't understand what it's like to be Black, yeah, and go through the trauma that we've gone through, but they want to be allies or whatever in whichever way. So we got to go through it first. Once we go through it, we can heal. Once we've healed, we can move past it. And that's what we need to do, move past it. Reversing it, we can't reverse it, I don't think, because we can't undo what's been done to us. Do you know what I'm saying? But we can go through what's been done to us. We can accept it and say, all right, that was then, this is now, and we can move past it. So that's, yeah.
Right. But awareness I think, is the most important aspect of that. If you're not aware, then you're just taking what comes your way. You're drinking the water that comes down.
Yeah, it's doomed to failure. What do they say in Alcoholics Anonymous? The first thing you got to do.
What is it? I don't know. I've not been. What's it?
Well, when I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, yeah, the first
you're not supposed to say the name. You're supposed to say 12-step program.
By the way, guys, that's a joke. I've never been to Alcoholics Anonymous. In fact, I don't even drink alcohol.
It's they don't like you even say the words.
But one of the first things you've got to do.
Rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club.
No, exactly. you're supposed to introduce yourself and say, I'm an alcoholic. You have to admit that you're an alcoholic.
Yeah, acceptance in it. Yeah, for real.
So I'm a victim of white supremacy.
Oh well, no, you wouldn't say that. You'd say, I'm aware that. Yeah, basically, yeah. But you're saying I'm aware that Willie Lynch syndrome is real, and I'm currently playing it out. once you
well, we're fighting it because we're pointing out.
Well, we are. Yes.
Now, I don't know. We're pre-recording this, of course, so we can't see what the chat is saying.
Don't cut too much out, Mike.
Even though we're popping up the chat, huh?
I said, don't cut too much of it out. I don't think.
No, we're not cutting. We're not cutting much out of it out. But what I'm saying is, as we replay this, we're not seeing what you're saying live, right? But I would hope that it's a good mix of intelligent statements that are popping up on the screen. You know, at this juncture, after we've exposed this.
Yeah, the summary, because like whenever we do these 21 Rules of Blackness, Real Black convos, we want to end with a solution. Yeah, we don't want to be like other YouTube channels. Well, we don't want to be like, so we don't want to be like other YouTube channels where we just talk about something that annoys us and then talk about it, how much we hate it, and there's no solution at the end of it. Yeah, so we always try to end with a solution, and the solution is like what Mike gave a good solution, Manny gave a good solution in terms of the trauma, and I think the general consensus here is you have to acknowledge that it's real and that you're doing it, yeah. And then once you've addressed that, then we can start making steps to try and rid ourselves of this, yeah. But first is the acceptance, yeah, right. knowing that it's there, because there's a lot of people who refuse to believe that they're being literally controlled like a puppet, yeah. And
well, I think a lot of our audience, to be fair, does not. They've untangled a lot of those cords.
They have, but these are the guys who need to forward it on to the people who are still.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so they need to. So you guys, all you guys who are woke, let's use that term now.
Oh, you killed yourself there, bro.
You want to cut that bit out for us, Mike? No, I'm joking. That's like a dirty word now, isn't it? When I was using,
we're speaking to woke people that are aware. I mean, you wouldn't have clicked this video and watched this far if you weren't interested in the topic. So
yeah, but the term in Britain now, they've kind of like they've kind of like ruined the word now. It's not like what it used to mean in the 90s. But
90s.
In the 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s. Yeah,
Spike Lee
and the school days.
Spike Lee and it woke. Yeah, for real.
Yeah, we were like in the school days. Wake up. Yeah, and
really good.
Say again.
That was really good. That was. Do it again.
Wake up. You know what? Yeah, I can actually do a really good Charles Woods impression now.
Oh, you gotta lean back. You gotta lean back. Okay, all right. So we're winding this up. We're gonna end on a clip, but go ahead. Let's. I mean, we've been scrolling the comments. This is your dismount.
Can I do my Charles Woods impression?
Yeah, I'm gonna solo you. I'm gonna take. All right, hang on.
Oh, okay.
Let me figure out how to do this. Wait, hang on. Remove. All right, the stage is yours, Jason, and then we'll go into the clip.
It's about technology, is what it's about. The white man has got technology down to us and is making us think that up is down and down is up.
That's what I've
got. Shout out to Charles Woods. Okay.
Hopefully, Charles, you appreciate it.
Bravo. Nice try.
Say again?
Why do all your impressions sound the same?
They don't. That sounded spot on. That was like,
well,
if you close your eyes, you think that was Charles Woods.
That's the first recorded Charles Woods impression that I've ever seen.
Tell him this
could be a TikTok challenge.
Come on, you're pushing it now. Give me a chance. I have to practice for the Dick. I'll do that next time.
I'm telling you, huh?
That could be a TikTok challenge. Charles
I didn't
Woods
ask you, huh?
Huh?